Trail Running Race Directors podcast, also known as the TURD podcast. I'm your host, Shalini Bhajjan, and I'm excited to introduce today's guest. So let's get rolling. Welcome to the first episode of TURD podcast. I'm super stoked to welcome Dale Garland, the race director for one of the most iconic races, both nationally and internationally, Hardrock 100. Welcome to the podcast, Dale.
Melanie, thank you so much. I am honored that of everybody that you could have possibly reached out to, here I am on the first podcast.
Yes,
So
inspired by you. So,
yeah, it's so cool. It's a
so
great idea. Great
well,
idea.
thank you. So I would like to let's start with who is Dale Garland?
Um, well, let's see. So I am a retired school teacher. I
Okay,
am, as you said, a director of the Hard Rock 100 Endurance Run. I'm a husband. I'm a pet owner. I'm, uh, a newly transplanted. Uh, I've changed my location of where I lived for a long period of time, and so I'm a new citizen of a new community. So there's all sorts of things that are going on. Uh,
so tell me a little bit about teaching. Like, what did you
right,
teach? What grade?
right.
And like how that kind of. I mean, was that something that's been your lifelong career, or?
Yeah. It was, I come from a family of teachers. My
Sure,
mom's a teacher, my dad's a teacher, my dad's wife, my dad's second wife was a teacher. My sister, this is the family business basically.
sure,
Um, and so I went to college in Durango at Fort Lewis College. Go
sure.
Skyhawks. And you know, um, I always kind of had an interest in teaching, although initially I thought I was going to kind of break from the family biz. But the more I went to college and started learning about the education and just getting more enamored with the teaching profession there, uh, I gravitated to teaching at Durango High School, and I taught. Durango High School was the only place that I taught. I taught there for 32 years. I
Wow.
taught social studies. Which means if you're a social studies teacher, you basically teach a wide variety of things from economics to politics to political science to history. And so that's what I spent most of my adult career doing, is
So
working
did
with.
you retire with them, or did you
Yeah,
switch? Oh, did you?
yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
How was
But
that?
my real passion and how it kind of, and I know this is about trail running, and I think it's kind of the bridge, if you will, is I really enjoyed working with students and developing their leadership skills.
Sure.
And so we developed a pretty robust student leadership program at Durango High School that I was proud to be a part of. And because of that and learning and applying some of those principles and ideas, I use them in my role as the director of Hard Rock.
Okay. And how about location-wise? Have you always lived in Colorado,
hmm
or?
Well, sixth generation Coloradoan.
Okay.
Um, went to high school. Grew up on the Front Range of Colorado in the Denver area.
Sure.
And then I went right after high school. I knew at that point I wasn't really interested in going to college, but I knew if I stayed there, I'd probably end up in trouble, something. So I joined the Army and served for 3 years in the Army, and
Sure.
then came back. And that was when I was really decided I was ready for college. I was ready to pursue some a career and that kind of thing. Uh, and that by that time I'd started to run a little bit. And so when I was visiting colleges, I went to Durango and just fell in love with the area and
Okay.
um, and just said, this is where I want to be.
Sure.
And uh, so I went, as I said, I went to Fort Lewis College and started there and stayed there and just had a great time.
So before we get into how you got into running and your
hmm
journey into Hard Rock, we met at the U.S. Trail Running Conference
hmm
last
hmm
October, and talk
Right.
to me a little bit about your wife. How long have you been married? And she seemed very patient, and I chatted a little bit. So,
Yeah. I've been fortunate to be married to my wife for 32 years.
Nice.
Um, and she is also retired. She's a retired nurse. That's
Okay.
that's what she wanted to do. So we are the very prototypical double income, no kids,
Sure.
teacher nurse kind of couple. And but to her credit, and I couldn't pursue my role in Hardrock without her support.
Okay.
She's been kind of the behind the scenes, kind of keeps me in check a little bit, keeps me on the not on the straight and narrow, but she keeps reminding me about my role and how important it is, and when it's not important, it's like, there are other things in life too.
Sure.
So let's not try to go off the deep end. So she's my lifesaver.
Okay. And then I know you have a dog because I've seen the
Mhm.
dog by when I was
Yeah.
volunteering, so at Hardrock. So, always been a dog person,
Yeah,
or
always had
yeah.
dogs. I've always had
Okay.
dogs since I can remember. Growing up, I had them. And then we adopted 2 years ago now. We adopted a rescue dog, a yellow lab,
Yeah.
who had been used specifically for breeding, and
Mm,
so uh, kind of a sad story,
sure.
but also it's been kind of fun to teach her to be a dog. Even as we're recording this, she's at doggy daycare, learning, just interacting with other dogs because she never really
Sure.
had that experience as a
Yeah.
as a puppy. She was just used for, as I said, for breeding and not. And so when we got her, she she didn't know how to do anything. She didn't,
Okay. So
so
how old is she?
she
And her
is
name?
probably 4. Shelby, her name's Shelby.
Shelby? Okay.
Shelby,
Okay.
she's about 4 years, or between 4 and 5.
Okay.
Um,
Um, so I know you had mentioned you recently relocated from
mhm.
Durango, and how
Uh-huh.
long has that been, and what's that t transition like? What transpired that
Right.
transition?
Right. We moved, yeah, after both Mary Beth and I retired, we kind of reevaluated where we were in our lives and what was important and things like that. And we don't have kids. And
Sure,
so we started to really start asking our question, where do we want to kind of spend that last quarter of our lives together,
sure.
And so realizing that family is important, it was going to be especially important as we grew older. Her family, my Mary Beth's family, is in Kansas and Nebraska, and my
Okay,
family's on the Front Range of Colorado. So we moved to the Front Range of Colorado. But what I'm finding, and the reason we selected Fort Collins and that area is because it's a community that is a lot like Durango. It's got an outdoor
sure.
recreation influence. It's got a college influence. It's got a vibrant downtown and those kinds of things. And so living in the Fort Collins area, we actually live about, I don't know, 10 minutes outside of downtown Fort Collins, or 15
Okay,
minutes outside of downtown Fort Collins, in a
yeah,
small community. Um, but where there is a main street. We have a main street where we live, and that's it.
sure.
But so we moved here a couple of years ago and have just been getting to know the community and getting to know, you know, all the opportunities that are available.
Yeah,
But what I found is that the physical move was a lot easier than the emotional move. When
yeah,
you
I
live
bet.
and play, and you have,
Sure.
40 years of history in a place, you just don't give that up.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah. Yeah.
and so that's been
And
developing the deeper relationships has been a little bit still a challenge.
sure. So do you have that? I'm assuming you have family in the area,
Mhm.
or at least close
Right.
enough where you can
Right.
hang out over the weekends and do stuff.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or I can go
Uh,
down and go to my 3-year-old nephew's birthday party and that
sure,
kind of thing.
sure. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So do you have any siblings?
I do. I have two sisters and two brothers.
Older, younger?
They're all younger,
Okay. So you're
and
the oldest.
and now it's now that's a relative term, that we're all
Right.
we're all but yeah, we're all 2 years apart. I'm the oldest, and then I have a sister and two sisters and a brother, and then a half brother, and we're
Okay.
all
And are
kind of
they again in the area? Fort
uh,
Collins? Yeah.
well, they're my brother. is still in Durango. He retired. He was a sixth grade teacher, and God bless him. I don't know how how
Yeah,
he
middle
did a
school.
whole career of middle school, but he
Sure.
did it. But
Yeah.
he's still in Durango, and then my sisters are here, and then my half
Okay.
brother is in California.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
So let's talk about running and,
Hmm.
just I'm sure living where you live, that was, inevitable. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, my running is it's kind of it's an interesting story because it when I, in usually when you talk to people there's some kind of connection to running in high school. They ran on the cross country team or blah 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 blah. Well, I was about as far from running as you could have been till I joined the army, and uh, I remember this day so clearly. I was stationed up in Seattle where it was gray and dreary. If you've been to Seattle, the
yeah,
winter
oh yeah,
pretty gray and dreary and stuff. And then, but I'd like to, I was into lifting weights and at the time. And
sure,
I just remember, so I'd run up to the gym, the on-post gym for, just basically to warm up. And it was a spring day, and it was the typical, the prototypical Forrest Gump day. I was running up to the gym, and it was beautiful out, and I just kept running.
yeah,
And it was like, wow, this is really cool. And I think I ran all of like maybe, I don't know, 2 miles or 3 miles, something like that. I mean, it was not a stupendous thing. But then I kind of really started to say, God, this is kind of fun.
yeah,
I kind of enjoy running. And then when I was discharged, or when I left the army and moved to Durango, one of the first couple people that I met were runners, and
sure,
so I kind of learned at the at the knee of people who come to find out were pretty darn good ultra runners in their own right. And that was Skip Hamilton, who won Leadville back in the
sure,
day for many. He lived in Durango, and then a guy named Steve Flanagan who ran on the U.S. Cross country team. And is a relative of Shalene Flanagan, who's a
sure, sure,
pretty
sure,
darn
sure.
good runner now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
How old were you at the time?
so 22, 23.
22. So,
Yeah,
what, um, I mean, outside of that, have you
yeah,
raced, uh,
yeah, yeah.
competitively
Well,
and
and I did. Durango it was a really active outdoor town, so there was a pretty active running community.
sure,
Um, and then in 1987, I read an article about this trail that was being built that was going to connect Denver and Durango called the Colorado Trail.
hmm
And it was an expose, actually it was an expose on not only the trail, but on the founder of it and kind of the driving force behind it. And her name was Goody Gaskell.
okay,
And so I kind of got intrigued with, wow, what's possible? Is it possible to run this?
yeah,
Never having done anything like that before in my life. But so I reached out and was able to actually talk with Goody, met her at her house, and I kind of posed the questions like, how can I get involved? And she goes, well, why don't you organize a run from
yeah.
on the trail, and we'll coordinate it with the opening of the Colorado Trail, and we'll make a big deal of it, and da 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 da. Da. And so that kind of got me introduced to ultra running.
What year
And
was that? Do you remember?
yeah, it was 1988 is when we ran the Colorado Trail.
And was at the time, I guess was the trail connected through and through,
We
or
were literally running as they were connecting it. I
okay,
mean, there were times where as we were running, we'd run by people and they were pounding in,
sure,
trail
sure,
marking
cutting
signs
the
and things
trails,
like
yeah,
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
So
So
was that
that got me into longer distance trail running kind of
okay?
thing. Yeah.
So was that how long was that run? I guess was that an organized group run, or was it
No,
more?
well, it was four of us.
Okay,
There are four of us. It took us a couple years to get it, put it together. But no, it was just four friends
okay,
that and we're still friends. We
sure,
still get together and we still talk about it and that kind of
okay,
thing. But it was, uh, the only goal that we had was that we started from Durango and we needed to be in Denver on the day of the dedication.
okay. And how long did that take you guys?
Uh, well, it took us 17 days.
17 days. Was that
Yeah.
primarily running or a combination running, hiking, and
Yeah, both. Yeah,
okay.
running, hiking, getting lost every day.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
get lost every day. And this is before Strava and
Sure,
GPS and stuff
sure.
like that. So we had, USGS, quarter minute
Maps.
maps and
Yeah,
a trail that wasn't well laid in and that kind of thing. So in a real sense, it was a real adventure. And we had our parents, our fathers especially, who were there to support us. And it
sure,
was actually turned out to be a really great kind of vacation because all we had to do was run. I mean, they took care of setting up camps and taking care of our food and everything like that. So
sure.
it was really fun.
So have you been a competitive runner? Have you signed up for races? Like what's that
Yeah,
history like and what's the farthest distance you've raced, I guess?
right, right. Yeah, I mean, to go back to when I first started, I kind of once I started running and competing, there were a lot of people in Durango who would run 5Ks, 10Ks. I did kind of
Sure.
the road, what would you call it? Evolution. You start
Yeah,
with
I think
5K,
a
then
lot of us
10K,
do.
then then I'll do a half marathon, then I'll do a
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
marathon, and blah 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 blah.
Sure.
Um, and then when we were training for the Colorado Trail, I actually did a couple of like I don't know 50Ks and things like that to kind of get us prepared to run on the trails and things
Sure.
like that. Uh, I remember one especially. It was called the Doc Holliday Trail Run in Glenwood Springs. It's no longer around, but
Right.
that was one that I did. And then when we ran the Colorado Trail, one of the first places we ran, or when we one of the towns we ran through was Leadville,
Okay.
and I became familiar with the Leadville 100 and
Sure.
met Marilee O'Neill and met Ken Klober and that kind of thing, and so we finished in July, and I said I think I want to go back and try to run the Leadville 100.
Leadville.
Yeah, it's like I
So it
know
was
them, and and so I ran. Yeah, that was my first 100 mile
okay.
competition was the Leadville 100.
Sure. What year was that?
19 1988.
1988.
Yeah,
And
1988.
so tell me what that transition was like running that 100 miles. I mean, that in itself is an iconic 100. And
Yeah.
what was it? And how old were you at the time?
Oh, let's see. 88 was I was 31, 32.
Okay, so that was
Yeah.
like your true. I'm breaking into
Uh-huh.
some
Uh-huh.
serious ultras here.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, yeah. And we had like the Colorado Trail boys were my support crew,
sure,
and pacers and everything like that. And so it was it was weird because it was a competition, but I was there with my friends, so it
sure.
was okay.
Yeah,
It was
yeah, yeah.
good. And I actually ran Leadville 4 times
4 times.
in my career. Right.
Sure.
Yeah.
So outside of Leadville 100, what other hundreds have you run?
Western states, and
Okay,
that's gonna be very pivotal to the Hardrock story.
sure.
Here in just a second, because I've got a story about that.
Okay,
So that was the only, and those are the only two
sure.
I've competed in. I've run a bunch of shorter races like 50 milers, and as we're recording this, last weekend was
Yeah,
Crown
yeah,
King
yeah, yeah.
50K in Phoenix. I ran that
Oh,
about
did
three
you?
times.
Yes.
Yeah, and that kind of thing. So.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So
And then spent a lot of time in the Grand Canyon. That was always one of I had a good friend in college who that was spring break every year we'd run in the Grand Canyon.
sure.
So that was something that we did a lot, and
Yeah.
I
So
love
were
going
you
down there.
running when you met your wife? Or were
Yes,
you at the time so I guess she knew
yeah,
what she was
she
getting herself into.
kind
Okay.
of, kind of, kind of, yeah. But then there's an end to that story too. But yeah, so 1980, yeah. So after I ran Leadville, um, I really became interested in this ultra running community. I mean,
Sure.
it was a small community. It was, it's not like it is now.
Yeah.
Um, and so I was running at Western States, and it just so happened out of just luck that my dad, who was there to support me,
Sure.
and the wife of the guy who founded Hardrock found themselves at the same aid station. And as you do, you talk to people and stuff like
Right.
that. And pretty soon, talk turned to, oh, where are you from? And where are you from? And they found out they lived close together. And then Molly, Gordon Hardman's wife, the Gordon is the founder of Hardrock.
Sure.
Uh, she said, oh, my husband is going to do this. He's trying to organize this 100-mile run down where your son lives. And of course, my dad, being my dad, volunteered me to say, "Oh, just reach out to Dale. I'm
Sure.
sure he'd love to help your husband organize this race." And that's kind of how I got
So that
involved.
was your intro to hard rock.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
But, uh,
and
but the
again,
other
what you
part too, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Sorry.
no, I was saying, so how long ago was that? Like how many
90.
years, I guess, have you been inducted into the hard rock family?
Yeah, that there were Gordon Hardman was the founder of Hard Rock, and it was his idea to put together this postgraduate run that connected the southwest the towns in southwest Colorado of Ouray, Telluride, Lake City,
Sure.
and Silverton. And he actually placed an ad in Ultrarunning in 1989, I guess.
Okay.
And and so he got three responses of people who wanted to help him organize this.
Sure.
Two of them had lived in the area, had grown up in the area. One still lived there. And then my dad volunteered me. So there were five of us that kind of put it together in the late 80s and put it together so we could start it. And our first Hard Rock was 1992.
92.
Yeah,
So was the course the same? Like,
pretty
has the,
much.
so it's always stayed the loop, just no major changes in that.
No major tweaking a little bit,
Sure.
hey, we could go on this trail as opposed to running down this road, or, we need, sometimes like the Forest Service or the BLM said, hey, can you kind of retweak your course a little bit to get out of this sensitive
Sure.
area or
Sure.
whatever. But the concept of connecting the four towns through a series of trails has remained constant
Okay.
since the first one.
So, how involved were you in the early years as far as the course layout? Like, were you running
Um,
sections and
right. Yeah, we I would say pretty involved.
okay,
Uh, we among the five of us, I was probably the least experienced at the time of the trail runners in Southwest Colorado. I mean, we had John Kappas, who was our first course director,
sure,
and Rick Trujillo, who lived, worked, played in Ouray his entire life, still lives there, matter of
hmm
fact, really were the ones who knew not only the systems trails, but the social trails.
okay,
And so that, when we would sit and look at maps, we'd say, oh, how do we get from Maggie Gulch to Sherman? It's like,
sure,
oh, we know there's a trail there. It may not be on the maps, but we know that there's a trail
yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah,
And so it was really John and Rick who were really the course people. And then we'd go out and we'd mail. I mean, Rick literally had a wheel that he ran with and
yeah,
measured the course and
measuring.
stuff like that. Yeah, yeah. So,
I'm so
you know,
glad we don't have to do that these days.
oh man, yeah, totally different. But then, there were the other parts of it, and yeah, I had done some race event management in Durango, so I kind of instead of the course, I kind of gravitated towards the other organizational
Sure,
tasks you have to do when you're a, when you're, and you know it as well as I do, when you're a race director, it's not all glamour and standing in front of people. There's a
sure.
lot of work that has to be done,
Yeah,
and
just the grind work behind
it's
the
the grind
scenes.
work.
Yeah, yeah,
Exactly.
it's like
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah.
So I guess the initial years, talk to me a little bit about permitting because,
Yeah.
that's got to be an enormous. I mean, here in St. Louis, I'm dealing with county
Right.
parks.
Right.
Occasionally I'm dealing with national forest system, but
hmm
with
hmm
Hard Rock and given the nature and just, you're out in the wilderness, like
hmm
real.
hmm
How does that, like, what does that permit, like back in the day?
Back in
I'm
the,
sure,
yeah.
the permitting process has obviously evolved as the race has and
Right.
things have changed, but back then, how easy or how difficult was it?
It was, and I know all of the listening audience are all directors, or this is geared towards directors, are just going to go, you were so lucky, because we really were. We
Yeah.
had a very strong advocate in the Bureau of Land Management,
Okay.
um, who basically said, give me a map, give me an idea of where you're going. I'll
Sure.
take care of the permitting. I'll reach out to the Forest Service. I'll reach out to all the resource managers. I'll take care of it. Because we really, and Rick Ryan, God bless him, is really the driving force of us being able to have a permit.
Sure.
Uh, and it was so easy because he would say, we gave him the layout and he helped initially. He'd go, yeah, you might want to change this particular
Reroute
part of
this.
the
Yeah.
course or whatever.
Sure.
But then he said, just once we get it, I'm going to send it out. And if nobody gives any bad comments, I'm just going to issue you your permit.
Okay.
And so, he oversaw, we now pull, let's see, we pull one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine permits
I
now.
was going to ask you how
Yeah.
many permits, and so is that, and I'm assuming it's not just forestry, you're
It's
getting.
United States Forest Service. It is the Bureau of Land Management because half of our, or not half, but a percentage of our courses on BLM land and a percentage of our courses on Forest Service land. But then
Okay.
you also have all the counties
Yeah.
who
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
have, in fact, yesterday I submitted three of the permits, for the counties. That's what
Sure.
I did yesterday. And then you have the municipalities, you have the towns.
Okay.
So,
So I'm assuming because I know with a lot of like national forests, you can secure a 5-year permit as long
mhm,
as you're not
mhm,
making major changes.
mhm.
Does that at all come into play, or are you having to request permits every year for the
No,
race?
we have a multi-year permit with
Okay.
both the BLM and the Forest Service.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's, I'm
Yeah.
assuming, 5 years
Huge.
typical, or is it 10?
It's five,
5. Okay.
5 year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, talk to me a little bit about, because, Hard Rock is not just a single propriety, there's multiple layers. How and what does that executive board, or how it came into
Mhm.
shape? And then I'm sure, there's been a massive evolution over the
Mhm.
course of years as times
Mhm.
are changing, racing is changing.
Mhm.
So what was that like laying out
Eh,
those roles and
It's become a lot more organized as we've grown as an
sure,
event and grown as a group. Yeah, originally it was the Dale, John, and Charlie show,
okay,
and we all kind of divvied up our parts, but the
sure,
expectation, and that's what's kind of been changing, is the expectations and the availability of technology and all that kind of stuff
sure.
was so much less, when we first started
Yeah,
compared
yeah,
to
yeah.
now.
Yeah, so
But
like at the present moment, what does that
Mhm.
board look like? How many
Right.
members are there? And
Mhm.
just briefly, if you want to talk about the different roles and,
Mhm.
where you stand as far as overseeing and
Right. Yeah, we're a 501(c)(3),
okay,
and so we're a not-for-profit, and so we have a board of directors
sure,
that is really tasked with uh, financial oversight, policy governance, things like that. They don't worry about what color t-shirts to order. They
right,
don't worry about how many packets of nutrition to put out on the course or anything like that.
sure,
Um, they're I'm their single employee.
okay,
They hire me,
yeah,
and then the run committee, as it's populated now, is 25 people.
okay,
And and we've been together. I mean, we're still having people who were there at the very beginning who helped. So we've
right,
organized as a committee. We have over 300. I just tallied it up in exchange, in preparation for this. We've organized over 330 hard rocks among us.
nice, yeah,
So it's a well-oiled machine, and that goes to everything from um, it started out with a communication person, and then it's an aid station person, and then pretty soon we had runner. Now we have a runner tracking person, and we have a
right,
media person. And as we've evolved, and as the sport has evolved, we've added people to the run committee.
okay.
And then
So
my job is really to oversee them and get them the resources that they need in order to do what they need to do.
So with that, I would like to talk about Silverton because
Hmm.
having been there a couple of years and volunteered, as you said, it's just such a well-oiled machine. Like you just turn your head and it's there. You
Yeah.
don't even have to like think about it. And then the town itself, I feel it just has. I've raised Angeles Crest. There's something about Silverton that just everything just comes together.
Right.
And
And
I know
that didn't happen early on.
I was
The-
gonna say because
A
there's all
big,
this.
in fact, last night I was in front of the town board at the Silverton Town Board, telling them, and telling them about, our financial impact and what people think of Silverton and
Sure,
things like that, and asking them to host us again. The
yeah,
original idea of Hard Rock was really to start and finish in each of the towns. So one
okay,
year we would start and finish in Silverton, the next year Ouray, Telluride,
sure,
we just keep
sure.
rotating around. Well, the only town, that was the plan, but the only town that really expressed interest in us being there was Silverton.
Silverton, yeah,
Yeah. And so you go to where you feel most comfortable and most
sure.
welcome. And so Silverton very quickly, very early on became the home of Hard
The
Rock.
house, yeah,
Yeah. And it's a
um,
town for your listeners. Silverton is a town of 500 people to
yeah,
700 people. So, but initially they were really skeptical of what we were doing. I mean, these were old town mining, hard rock mining people who didn't see any value in recreation. I
sure,
mean, it was a mining economy, it was a mining mentality, and
yeah,
anything else was like, we don't want to deal with it. We're
right,
here, we're away from everything for a reason.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah, yeah,
it has been a process to kind of show them relevance and how it's helping the community. And I'm glad you picked up on that because part of what we want to do is to be a good community citizen and to be a
sure,
good community asset. So buying as much as we can locally and contributing back to the community through our philanthropy and stuff like that has been a process. And we're just now, I'd say probably in the last, I don't know, 7 or 8 years, we've kind of become you know, a really good partner with Silverton. And they've
sure.
really,
So, I having organized races, I think initially, like you said, everybody's skeptical.
hmm
And I know there's, with growth, there's growing pains, and also, with all that focus, not just in July when the race is held, but also throughout the year, people are coming in and out. And I know sometimes that can be off-putting.
hmm
You feel like
hmm
I mean, this is my home, and you have all these
Right.
outsiders
Yeah.
encroaching. Has
Right.
that been, or how has that changed, or, what? Because I know a lot of effort has to be made in maintaining that relationship. It's
Mhm.
not just like, hey, we're bringing in X amount of,
Right.
economy is getting a boost from this event.
hmm
There's other things to it.
hmm
So,
Yeah, and it all gets down to relationships and communication, and communicating with not only the elected officials, the politicos, the sheriff, and that but also the townspeople themselves about
sure,
these are good people, and we've actually and it's not that in a bigger sense, it's not that many, but in a town the size of Silverton, we've actually had 8 or 9 people who came to run Hard Rock, loved it so much that they stayed.
yeah, yeah,
They
yeah,
just
yeah.
stayed. The most recent example is Dr. Yvonne Naughton, who ran Hard Rock, and again, loved it. And so her and her husband decided to move to Silverton. They're both doctors. Silverton didn't have a doctor. Uh, and so, because of Hard Rock, now they have medical care in
Sure,
Silverton.
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Um,
So, but it is something, people come, they move, they get involved with the community in a variety of ways. Uh,
sure.
it's
So I think I would like to touch on the scholarship program
Mhm,
and when that's
mhm,
sort of formulated, how
mhm.
long that's been in play, and just give me a little bit of, and everybody listening, a synopsis of, what
Sure.
that's doing and why
Right.
is that important?
Right. We had a runner. His name was Joel Zucker, who loved. He was from upstate New York. He was a librarian from upstate New York. Came to Hard Rock and just he said, "I'm home," and
Right.
he just fit right in, and ran Hard Rock multiple times,
Sure.
and then was driving back from Hard Rock to flying, or he's flying out of Albuquerque, driving back to Albuquerque to fly home and suffered a brain aneurysm and passed away. And so his family, knowing how much it meant, how much Silverton
Sure.
and San Juan's meant to Joel, reached out to us and said, we'd like to do something in the community to honor the memory of Joel Zucker. And so we created a scholarship that was for high school students and post high school students from who graduate from the four anchor town high schools,
Sure.
and and we create a scholarship in Joel's name. They can apply for it multiple times. They don't have
Sure.
to use it. We've used it obviously for higher ed, but we've also used it for. I remember a guy was going to trade school,
Okay.
and auto trade school, and he needed money for tools, and so
Sure.
we helped with that. And so this has been kind of one of our benchmark philanthropic efforts. We're now at a little over $325,000 that we've
Sure.
we've given back to in terms of scholarships, to 150, I think it's about 150 scholarships since
Yeah.
Joel has
And
passed.
I always thought that was pretty amazing. So how long has that scholarship been in place?
19.
How many years total, would you
Oof.
say?
I didn't know you were going to ask me that. It's been about
Give me a ballpark.
it's been about 20 years.
20 years. Very
Yeah.
nice. And the race
Yeah.
has been around 30 something?
30. This is our 30th running.
Okay.
We've had to cancel it four times, so we can't
Sure.
say it's our 30th anniversary. It's our 30th running.
Okay.
And
30th
so this
running.
is
Yeah.
this is our celebration of 30 years of people running Hard Rock.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, so if you were to just ballpark, like each year, how many students get to, and I'm sure it's dependent
Mhm.
on like applications and how many
Exactly.
people coming in, but like on average, you're like, hey, we can get 10 kids,
8 to 10.
eight
Yeah,
to
yeah,
10.
that's a good number.
Sure.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. It
that's
is
pretty
it is
amazing.
based on need. Well, it's not based on need, on financial need. We try to, if they are making progress or they are showing uh, you know, an interest in continuing their education, we'll find money for them somehow.
Okay. So
And
is
so
that just
depending
an
on,
annual? Are
it's
you
an
cup?
annual,
Okay.
right? It's given out annually every April
Okay.
and Charlie Thorne, who is one of the original five, and his wife Andy Crone are really the driving force behind the scholarship, and it's really their decisions that kind of determine, how much money we
Who's
give
getting the
out and that kind of
scholarship?
thing. Hmm.
Yeah. So what's that process like? I mean, when do you guys open applications? And I'm assuming, that's open to, as you mentioned, the four towns that are engaged in I mean, Ouray, you've got Telluride, Silverton.
Lake City and Silverton. Uh-huh.
Okay. So I'm assuming that those are the kids that are applying, or are
Hmm.
you taking, okay,
Exactly. And then, and they go on. And so, you know, they'll they'll go on to postgraduate work, either at a four-year institution or a community college or a trade school or whatever. But again, the key thing is that they graduated high school from one of the four towns,
okay.
and that they're making progress towards some kind of a degree or a trade or something that will better themselves.
So have any of the students that have been part of the scholarship program and have received the grants, have they been involved with Hard Rock at all?
They come back. Yeah,
Yeah,
they'll come back. They'll come back and volunteer. There's none of them that are, like on the run committee. We haven't had that yet.
sure,
But like I remember last year we were actually, another one of our philanthropy things is we host a women's running weekend in
sure.
September, and so we were at the women's running weekend, and actually the person the person who was we were working with for the town of Silverton was one of our recipients, and so she was
Sure.
our conduit. She was our conduit back to the
Okay.
town.
Yeah, one of the things that I noticed while I was volunteering was just the wide range of people that come out to support the race. I mean, you have old timers, and then you have, young students that are studying X, Y, and Z. I mean, even the medics, and
Mhm.
so I thought that was very refreshing because there's just such a difference in perspective and experience
Right.
and what they're doing
Yeah.
while they're
Yeah.
out. So just briefly talk to me a little bit about race prep and I know a month in advance you guys are prepping food and things are getting frozen and packed and
Hmm.
all of the jazz. But
Right.
if you were to just nail a number and say, I start, because, again, as soon as you end a race, you're already on like permits
Oh
for
yeah.
next year.
And we all know that, right? As race
Right.
directors, we know, there's the execution, and then there's the reflection, and then there's the preparation,
Let's
right?
move
And
back
it just
on.
kind
Yeah.
of flows.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
but like on average, if you were to say where you're like, I start putting my head down or grind my nose, like
Mhm.
starting 6 months out, 4 months out, and what does that process look like?
Right. Uh, well, we've kind of said I think putting on an ultra is it's a passion job, right?
Sure.
And second of all, it's a year-round thing. Either you're thinking about it or planning it or whatever. Uh, so we really we if I was to say when do we kind of take a break, it's really kind of in September
Okay.
probably is we take 3 or 4 weeks and just kind of take a breath because we wrap up in July and the early part of August by the time you write your thank you notes and you pay your bills and all those
Sure.
kinds of things. September, but then in October we start promoting and we start prepping for our lottery, which we hold the first week of January, or
Right.
excuse me, first week of
December.
December.
Yeah.
And so we're prepping that, getting the applications ready, making sure when people apply that we've got all their data and all their information, that kind of thing. And then, yeah, it starts up again in October. Because you're dealing with, and we all know this as event directors, you've got not only event deadlines and event calendars but you've got permitting calendars, you've got
Sure.
to get certain things in, you've got, you know, for us, partners have certain budgets that, their budgets are due certain times, and so they need to know. So if you're dealing with any kind of corporate
Sponsorships. Yeah.
partnerships or things like that, so there's all these other layers upon layers of preparation. We actually have a big master workflow document that the whole run committee contributes, and
Sure.
then they just kind of follow their line across the year.
Yeah. Um, how's, and I mean, this has got to be mind blowing when I think about trail work.
Hmm.
What does that look like? And I mean, because you're covering 100 miles at a
Hmm.
time and it's not an
Hmm.
out and back or a loop,
Hmm.
how
Hmm.
far out in advance and then of course, snow.
Right.
Um, so
That's
what
it.
does that look like? Is
Hang that
that
Mother
like six
Nature
months out?
sometimes.
Right.
We have, yeah, trail work is a huge thing, and especially now with everything that's going on, we're trying to be good, fill in and help the Forest Service and the BLM where their staffing shortages are going to be and that kind of thing.
Sure.
But we start evaluating uh, where there needs to be trail work done well, I have a meeting with the trail work coordinator on Monday,
Okay.
and by now things have started to stabilize in terms of uh, avalanches and down trees and things like that. And
Sure.
then Trevor, and again, he's a member of the run committee, so that's another thing that's kind of expanded, was he'll organize trail work weekends, he'll organize, uh, coordinate with the Bureau of Land Management and the Forest Service, where do they need help on our course and
Sure.
that kind of thing. He'll also reach out to uh, the various trail work groups. In our case, there's a organization called the San Juan Mountains Association who oversees the entire they're involved with the entire San Juan Mountains,
Sure.
the Array Trails group and stuff like that, just and coordinating where we can kind of, work together to build and repair trails.
Okay.
Yeah, Mother Nature
Oh
can.
yeah.
There's some years that you just go, and we've actually one year because of snow, that was one of the years we had to cancel, not because there was so much snow on the course, but it had caused so many avalanches and things like that that we couldn't hold the course because there
Sure.
was so many avalanche places.
Yeah. So on base or at ground level, when do you get there? Because I know a lot of, especially
Hmm.
now, you can do a lot of Zoom calls, you can do,
Hmm. Hmm.
coordinate a lot of that
Right.
stuff. But like
Right.
physically, when do you get into town and then you're just stationed there? And for how long post race and pre race?
Um, yeah, and technology's been great to
Sure,
to 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 uh to kind of not have to, I mean, not have to be make have meetings and have to be, physically present. So our run committee meets every month.
okay,
Um, and just to kind of we keep a running agenda and we just communicate. Again, being a teacher, I value that communication component.
sure,
That's where I kind of came with that. Um, but I get to Silverton usually a week to 2 weeks ahead of time.
okay. And then
Um,
post race, how
I'm
long do you stay?
there for 4 or 5 days after.
Okay, so what would you say, like a 3 week commitment?
Yeah, 2 to 3
Yeah,
weeks.
2 to 3 weeks.
Because one of the things we do is we have not only Hard Rock the event, but we also have Camp Hard Rock, which is a series of events, educational events, social
Sure.
events, community building events that starts on the Monday of Hard Rock. So we have
Okay.
basically a whole week of Hard Rock. So I'm there to make sure all of that goes off and that kind of thing. So.
Okay. Um, I guess with that, talk to me a little bit about your experience on the course.
Mhm.
What sections have you covered? Do you have a favorite segment? And have you ever entertained running it or
Um,
hiking it?
or hiking it. Yeah, hiking it would be better. I have entertained the thought. I haven't done it. I have not done a soft rock.
Sure,
Uh, for your listeners who may not know about soft rock is kind of it's an organic thing that happens, and I mean, we don't sponsor it. It's not
sure.
part of Hard Rock, but there are a lot of people who will do like a 4 or 5 day hike going from
Hmm.
town to town, and then the next day town to town, and the
Sure.
next, that kind of thing. So people are out there doing it, all those things. And go back to that was a good question about, when are people in Silverton? They're there a lot, even when
Yeah,
we're not there because they're training or they've heard about Hard Rock or they want to run certain sections or they're doing a
segments.
soft rock or something. Um, but I think if you say where are your two favorite places, one would be up near the island and ice lake area.
Okay.
Um, it's very scenic. It's someplace that I'd been many, many, many times, even before as not related to Hard Rock, and so I always felt very comfortable there. And then the other place that I like is up near our highest point on the course, Handy's Peak, which is at
Okay.
14,000 feet.
Yeah.
I like that area up there in American Basin and Handy's and that whole area.
Sure.
Yeah.
So Handy's, because I've volunteered at Animus, which
Hmm.
used to be Gulch,
You know.
Grouse
Yeah.
Gulch.
Yeah.
So that's about like depending on which direction loop's going, it's like 50 or 60 miles.
Yeah.
And what about
Yeah.
the other segment you mentioned? Where, like,
Island Lake Ice Lakes.
yeah, well, how many miles in or out is that?
It's right outside of Silverton. Uh, and so depending on the route, it's uh, between our either before our let's see, between our first and second aid station if we're going in the counterclockwise direction, and it's between our 14th and 15th aid station if we're going in the
Okay.
clockwise direction. It's over.
What is
Yeah.
it about that?
It's
Like
up by
Handy's,
Joel. Huh?
I was saying Handy's, I get it because I've seen it. But what is it about that other section where you're just like, this is what's your calling?
It's yeah, and you might have even seen pictures because probably one of the most iconic pictures of the San Juans is of Island Lake, and it's this
Okay,
little island in the middle of in a high alpine lake.
sure.
Um, that in and of itself is just so beautiful. And it's located in this valley. It's a place that my wife and I have visited many
Sure,
times. There's a social connection. It's a place where Joel Zucker's memorial
sure.
is. We actually have a place that was one of his favorite places, and so I can visit that on a regular basis. Um, but it's just someplace that is just really special to me for a variety of reasons.
Okay. So, your history with Hard Rock in
Mhm.
years. How many years have you
Since
been part of
88,
Hard?
since 89,
Since 89? That's a long
so
time.
36 years.
Do you ever get tired of it?
No, no, I don't. I don't.
Um,
Well, now you're saying now, are there times that it's like, why the hell am I doing this? I
yeah,
mean, we
yeah.
all do
Oh,
that,
yeah.
right? We all do
Yeah,
that.
all the
It's
time.
like all the time. But
I don't know if that,
Shalini, but and I think I speak for all race directors when I say this, that when you're at the finish line
yeah,
and you can see the joy and some of just what finishing one of our events means to people.
sure.
How can you ever get tired of that?
Yeah, it's just raw
How-
energy.
yeah. And and knowing that you had even just a little small part of that, you
Yeah.
know, it's like, no, I never get tired of that feeling.
So is this going, is
Now,
Hard Rock?
that being said,
Well, so,
those down days when somebody is when somebody needs to sweep the floors or put out the trash,
sure.
it's like I'm 68 years old. I don't know
Oh,
how much more I've got.
I'm
How
getting
many
too
more?
old for this shit.
Yeah.
I think that happens a lot of times,
Yeah.
where I'm just like, ah, how long can I
Right.
keep doing this, you know?
Right. Right.
So
Yeah.
is Hard Rock going to be your ride and die? Or I mean, have you, I mean, is there remotely even like, oh, I should retire, or do I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah. No, I think about that.
yeah,
I think w will there be a time where Hard Rock will need new ideas, a new infusion of energy and things like that that I can no longer give it?
sure.
And the answer to that is yes.
Okay.
There probably will be.
Yeah,
And there'll be a time where I just think, it's an appropriate time for me to step away.
sure.
Um, I'm not there yet,
Yeah.
but it's on the horizon,
Yeah.
and I think it's only fair to the organization and to the runners that you not have somebody who's in charge of this who isn't into it or doesn't have the energy
Yeah,
to put
absolutely.
it on
Yeah.
and that kind
Yeah.
of thing.
Like most things, it's a labor of love. So
Yeah,
if you can't give it 100%, I think that reflects on
exactly.
the output of the event and how
Exactly.
everything's going.
Yeah. And
So,
when I can no longer give the energy or the commitment to it that I think it needs, then yeah, I'll step away. Now, with
yeah,
that being said, you want to know a little bit more about Dale. I'm a huge, and it isn't because they're doing well this year. I've followed Duke men's basketball
sure.
forever.
So is
Um,
that is that your
and there's a
side
story here.
hobby?
There's a story here because when I taught leadership, I taught Mike Krzyzewski because I think he's one of the best leaders of any sport that we've had in the past 30 or 40 years.
Sure.
And I used a lot of his leadership principles and things that I was in my leadership lessons when I was teaching. But what he did and how he could get back to Hard Rock is he very when he knew it was about going to be time for him to leave, he identified the person who was going to take his place and he mentored him.
Yeah,
And he made sure that when he stepped down, that John Shire, who's the coach now,
sure.
was was prepared and had all the tools that he needed to continue the excellence that had become Duke men's basketball.
Sure.
So I take that lesson. It's like when it's time, it's not going to be like I'm not going to wake up one day and say, "Oh, I think
Oh,
I'm
I'm
done."
out. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to have to kind of be very strategic and intentional, and it's going to be like a 2 to 3 year transition.
Transition period. Yeah. And I think the race requires or needs it. It's not as simple uh
Right,
to just step away from it and cut
right.
all ties.
Well, because we all, as ultra running directors, we have stuff that we write down, but we
Yeah.
have a bunch of stuff that's in our heart and our soul and our mind and our head that we have to pass on to whoever's taking,
Sure.
taking our place. And
Yeah.
so that takes a while, whether that's, you know, I'm going to stick around for a year after I
Yeah.
leave to be kind of a consultant, or
Right.
I'm going to do it a couple of years before. I'm not quite sure. But at the end of the day, I go back to our structure. It will be the board of directors who finally says, "Okay, we've had enough of you. Let's go a different direction."
Well, before I let you go, I enjoyed chatting with you and that was fun. I guess what I would like to know is what's one of the most boring hobbies that you have? Like stamp collecting. I don't know. Is there something that you're so passionate about and you're like, why am I doing this? And I think we all have those.
Uh, my hobbies? Does it have to be a boring hobby, or can I just say it's
It
a
could just be a hobby. Like it's just
hobby?
something
What
that's
do I
like,
like to do when I'm not directing Hardrock?
yes. How about that?
And some people say, well, is it a sport or whatever? But I love to scuba dive,
And how
believe
long
it
have you
or
been at that? Like,
not. About 10 years.
okay. Are you good at it?
I'm a dive master.
Oh, very
I'm
nice.
a scuba pro. I mean,
Sure.
I'm a professionally ranked, not professionally ranked, but you work your way through different levels, and
Right.
so I'm a dive master. So,
So do
uh,
you get to do that? Like how often and where? Whereabouts?
yeah, in Colorado, not,
Right.
yeah, it's probably better where you're from than where where you are than where
Ah,
I'm at.
yeah,
Um, it Yeah, I get to Mary Beth and I go, I don't know, two, three, four times a year to locations, and it's fundamentally changed a lot of where we go, where we vacation.
sure.
Uh, but there's just something so peaceful and so just I'm at home in the water as much as I
Yeah.
am in the
Okay.
and so I feel very comfortable there, whether it's, in the Caribbean or Hawaii or wherever. I just love that feeling of being weightless in an environment that is so unique and so different than
Sure.
what I do the rest of my life.
And before I let you go, I have to ask. So,
Yeah.
what's in store for the 30th anniversary this year
What's
for
in
Hard
store?
Rock?
Okay, very good. Thank you. Uh, Yeah, we're going to do some community building events. We've got actually somebody who is putting all of that together. I think one of the highlights that I'm most proud of is that we have uh, announced, and we will be being acknowledging or recognizing our first Hard Rock Hall of Fame class.
Very nice.
And so we're using the 30th running to kind of start that
Promote that. Yeah.
as a part of our new um, as part of what we will continue to do as we honor those people. Because what we're finding is we're at this point now where a lot of the people who were there at the beginning are aging out, or they've moved on to other parts of their lives. And
Sure.
so recognizing them, collecting their stories, collecting their memories and things like that is very important to us before it's too late.
Yeah. Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so, but we're also doing things. We're looking at photo exhibits. We're looking at, some community building kinds of things with both us and our partners. It's going to be fun.
Sure.
It's going to be
Well,
fun.
thank you so much again for being on the
I am
podcast.
so
And
honored. I am so honored that you asked me to do this, and I'm so glad we were able to connect.
yeah, me too. Well, thanks again.
Okay.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. And if you're looking for more information on the TURD podcast, visit our website at Terrain Trail Runners with an S.com, or you can give us a follow on the social media channels. Until next time, don't forget to say thank you to your favorite race directors. We appreciate it, and it makes our jobs worth doing. Thank you.